prison parolee and registered sex offender is suspected of killing 5 women in the city in just over a month, police said Friday. Matthew Emmanuel Macon, 27 of Lansing, also could face charges for a 6th killing from 2004. Lansing Police Chief Mark Alley said murder and assault charges were being pursued against Macon, who was paroled from state prison on June 26. Macon also is a registered sex offender, Alley said. He had been in prison off and on since 2001, returning twice for parole violations after serving more than a year and a half for larceny from a person, said State Department of Corrections spokesman Russ Marlin. Macon also had an extensive juvenile criminal history, including 2 sex offenses. Breaking, larceny, and unlawfully driving away an automobile, Marlin said. He was arrested Tuesday in connection with the death this summer of Ruth Hallman, 76, Deborah Cook, 36, Deborah Renfors, 46, Sandra Eichhorn, 64, and Karen Yates, 41. He also may be charged with the 2004 death of Barbara Jean Tuttle of Lansing. Police had been looking for clues and help from the public in 5 unsolved homicides since late July, including 2 this week, which had raised concerns a serial killer was on the loose in the state capital, a city of 114,000 located about 75 miles northwest of Detroit. Alley declined to discuss the circumstances surrounding the arrest or any motive for the homicides. Investigators had noted similarities between several of the slayings and a series of unsolved 2003 assaults. The 2003 victims were middle-aged or older women who lived alone, as were a number of the recent homicide victims. Yates died 2 days after Eichhorn was found dead in the house she rented on Lansing's west side. On Tuesday, a 56-year-old woman received non-life-threatening injuries in an attack on her home on the city's east side. Her dog heard the commotion and charged the man, causing him to flee the scene. Police credited the woman for providing key details that helped focus their investigation and led to a sketch of a suspect being distributed to the public. At the time, police said the person responsible for that attack was connected to the deaths of Eichhorn, Cook, Renfors, Yates, and Hallman, who was found beaten in her home on July 26 and died later. Cook's body was found on August 6 in a city park. Renfors was found dead on August 9 in a house. The crimes all appeared to fit a profile. The victims were women who lived alone and were beaten. But Thursday, Lansing police said residents could rest a little easier. A man authorities say is responsible for 5 homicides and 1 assault starting in late July and continuing through Wednesday has been arrested. The spree by day and victims. July 26th, Ruth Hallman, 76, a neighborhood activist and mother of Lansing councilwoman Carol Wood, was found beaten in her West Lapeer Street home. She died from the injuries 2 days later. Hallman had long stood for safe streets and often provided information to police about drug houses. August 7th, Deborah K. Cook, 36. Her body was found in Hunter Park on the city's east side. Officers were on routine patrol about 4:30 a.m. when they spotted her body next to a tree. She was bloodied and beaten in the face and naked below the waist. August 9th, Deborah Renfors, 46, was found dead in her new home in the 1000 block of North Washington in the Old Town district. Friends said Renfors was trying to leave a life of prostitution and would clean homes to avoid the temptation of returning to the streets. She moved from Matt Clemens to Lansing about 7 years ago. Monday, Sandra Eichhorn, 64, was found dead in a home she was renting in the 1800 block of South Genesee on the west side. Eichhorn, a General Motors Corpers plant retiree, had been renting the house for about a year and lived alone. She was a NASCAR fan. Tuesday, a 56-year-old woman was assaulted in her home in the 200 block of Jones Street on the east side. The woman was able to call police from her home after the assault. Police said the attacker, who claimed to be looking for work, entered her back door and struck her in the head. The woman's dog scared off the man and he fled. Police said the woman's description and evidence inside the home led them to the suspect. Police would not identify the victim, who has been released from the hospital. Wednesday, Karen Delgado Yates, 41, was found injured in a vacant house in the 1100 block of Hickory Street. Investors interested in buying the house found Delgado Yates. She died on the way to the hospital. Delgado Yates also had a history of prostitution and had lived in a homeless shelter for a while. Matthew Macon, who was named a suspect last week, was ordered held without bond during his video arraignment in Lansing District Court. Macon, a recent prison parolee and registered sex offender, had been in prison off and on since 2001 before being paroled in late June. He was handcuffed and wearing an orange jail jumpsuit beside his attorney, Mike O'Brien. Macon waived the right to have a preliminary examination within 14 days. The initial exam was set for Oct. 30/31 in the death of Sandra Eichhorn, 64, who was found dead in her home on August 27th. Macon consistently responded to Judge Patrick F. Cherry's procedural questions by answering, "Yes, sir, Your Honor." After the arraignment, Macon's family members declined to comment to the media and referred questions to his lawyer. O'Brien said Macon's state of mind was good, and he saw no need to seek a referral for a psychiatric evaluation. "I do not believe he's incompetent," O'Brien said. O'Brien said Macon's family supports him and his demeanor is up. O'Brien plans to file a motion to change venue, citing public statements about the case made by the Lansing mayor and police chief. Lansing police announced last week the apprehension of a suspected serial killer, and Mayor Virg Bernero called the suspect, and who had not been named yet, a monster. On Wednesday, the judge issued a restraining order preventing law enforcement officials and lawyers from speaking publicly about certain aspects of the case. He also suppressed parts of arrest warrants that detailed why Macon was charged. O'Brien said Macon's relatives wanted the public to know that their hearts go out to the victims. Let's not forget about them in this. There's some people out there with some immense grief. Macon was also charged with first-degree home invasion and assault, with intent to do significant bodily harm, less than murder at another Lansing home. On August 28th, the unnamed victim was hospitalized with non-life-threatening injuries, and police have credited her dog with saving her, and have credited the woman with providing key information. Macon also could face charges in the deaths this summer of Ruth Hallman, 76, Deborah Cook, 36, Deborah Renfors, 46, and Karen Yates, 41. A number of the victims were beaten and found in Lansing houses. Police also want Macon to be charged with the 2004 death of Barbara Jean Tuttle, 45, of Lansing. Both Tuttle and Renfors were found dead in the same house. Last week, investigators announced 27-year-old Matthew Emmanuel Macon, who has been in prison off and on since 2001, is a suspect in at least 5 unsolved murders that occurred this summer in mid-Michigan. He is also being looked at as a possible suspect in a 6th murder from 2004. Police arrested Macon last Tuesday on suspicion of not reporting to his parole officer and not registering as a sex offender. He also had an outstanding warrant for breaking and entering. Macon has an extensive criminal history, including 2 sex offenses, larceny, and unlawfully driving an automobile. Investigators have not yet provided details on what evidence they have connecting Macon to the murder cases. Still, they have noted similarities between Macon and a description given to them by a witness. "I am confident we have the right person in custody," Lansing Police Chief Mark Alley said during a news conference Thursday, describing Macon as a serial killer. The most recent killings began on July 26th, 1 month after Macon was paroled for his 3rd larceny conviction. On that day, 76-year-old Ruth Hallman was attacked in her West Lapeer Street home. Her injuries were fatal, and she died 3 days later at a local hospital. Less than 2 weeks later, on August 7, 2007, police found the body of 36-year-old Deborah K. Cook under a tree in an East Side park. Police have released few details on her murder, saying only that she was physically assaulted. 2 days after Deborah's murder, police responded to a 911 call at 1017 North Washington Avenue. Upon arrival, police found the body of 46-year-old Deborah Renfors. As with the previous case, police would not release any information about how the victim was killed. According to an August 11th news article published in the online edition of the Lansing State Journal, Chief Alley said the Renfors and Cook murders did not appear to be connected. On August 27th, a relative of 64-year-old Sandra Eichhorn found her body on the floor of her South Genesee Drive home. Police confirmed the victim was murdered, but would not comment on a cause of death. Following Sandra's murder, Allie announced the forming of a joint task force made up of Lansing Police, the FBI, and Michigan State Police. Allie said the task force was going to look for connections between Sandra's murder and other recent, unsolved homicides. Before police could finish connecting the dots on the murder cases, they were called to the scene of another attack. On August 28th, a 56-year-old woman was assaulted in her Jones Street home. A man who claimed to be looking for work entered the back door of her house and struck her on the head. Luckily, her dog was able to scare off the attacker. The victim, who has not been identified, provided police with a description of the suspect. This victim was brutally attacked, and she stayed coherent, articulate, and like in any investigation, we got the break, and things started to fall in our favor, and break wide open. Lansing Police Department Captain Ray Hall told Ones.com. The final attack came just one day later. On August 29th, a group of prospective property investors discovered 41-year-old Karen Delgado Yates barely alive in a vacant home at 1115 Hickory Street. An ambulance quickly transported Karen to Sparrow Hospital, but she died en route. Last week, police released a composite sketch of the suspect based on the description given by the woman who survived his attack. According to Macon's sister, the sketch proves that her brother is innocent. The guy that's a suspect, his nose is very different, Melissa Macon told Ones.com on Sunday. The guy doesn't have facial hair, but my brother's face will never be cleanly shaven because there are still hairs even when he does shave. Police want somebody. People think they are safe because my brother is locked up now, but they're not safe. Macon's father, Jim Henry Macon Jr., agrees. The sketch doesn't look anything like him, so I don't know what to think, he said in an interview with the Lansing State Journal. You're innocent until proven guilty. I guess his freedom's in God's hands. Investigators are determining if Macon might be connected to other area attacks 2003. In addition, Deborah K. Cook's murder took place in the same home where 45-year-old Barbara Jean Tuttle was bludgeoned to death in 2004. Police now believe the cases may be related. According to Chief Allie, Macon will be charged sometime this week in 5 homicides and the assault. The suspect is in a maximum security single-person cell at the Ingham County Jail. The despicable individual responsible for the heinous rampage through our community has been captured, Mayor Virg Bernero said at Thursday's news conference. Our nightmare is over. By the time Matthew Macon pleaded guilty at age 14 to sexually assaulting a girl with a stick, he had seen a lot of violence. Court documents reveal that Macon's father was violent and abusive. His older sister was placed in foster care in 1983 after her father was accused of sexually abusing her. Then, by age 16, at a 1996 Ingham County juvenile court hearing, a court referee said although Macon was making progress in a program for sex offenders, he required lifetime vigilance. Sexual offending, like an addiction, the court referee's notes from the hearing say about Macon. Police say Macon killed at least 6 women. He was arraigned Wednesday on a murder charge in connection with the death of 64-year-old Sandra Eichhorn. On August 27th, Macon's attorney, Mike O'Brien, would not comment on his client's past, citing a gag order. Family members said O'Brien instructed them not to make any further public statements. Macon, who underwent years of court-ordered treatment for sexual offenders, never was charged with a violent crime as an adult, according to court records. He lived in at least 3 homes for delinquent youths before he was 18. It is known that at least one of the 5 recent homicide victims also was sexually assaulted with a stick. Police arrested Macon last week on charges including failing to update his address on a sex offender registry. The vast majority of adolescents who commit sex offenses do not become sex offenders, serial rapists, or even serial killers, said Dr. Bob Geffner, an expert on sexual assault, who is president of the Institute on Violence, Abuse, and Trauma at Alliant International University in San Diego. The fact that Macon might have witnessed his older sister being sexually abused and with his history of acting out sexually means Macon also might have been abused as a youth, Geffner said. If nobody dealt with the trauma, anger, and hostility, Geffner said, that increases the likelihood it will come out. The anger becomes aggressive and turns outward. Court records detail a troubled path after 1983. Macon ran away from a foster care home in 1989. He was considered a delinquent. Court ward. In 1989, Macon was also charged with breaking into a Lansing bike shop and a comic club and pleaded guilty. In 1992, he was sent to Boys Town, a facility in Nebraska for delinquent children. He appeared in Ingham County Juvenile Court in November 1994 after escaping from Highfields, a home for juvenile offenders in Onondaga. He admitted to taking a car from the facility and, with a friend, breaking into a grocery store and stealing food according to a plea agreement. In May 1995, he was sent to W.J. Maxey Boys Training School, a facility for delinquent youth ages 12 to 21 near Ann Arbor. It provides sexual offender treatment, according to the State Department of Human Services. Macon remained at Maxey in the court's temporary custody through May 1996. In October 1997, he completed a sex offender treatment program. Court records show that social workers believed the likelihood he would commit another sex offense was very slim. The shackles came off of Claude McCollum on Tuesday. He's not quite free. He must wear an electronic tether. But his conviction in the 2005 rape and slaying of a community college professor was thrown out. He'll get a new trial. And a state police detective on Tuesday acknowledged another man has confessed to the crime. That confession by accused serial killer Matthew E. Macon is what caused investigators to re-examine video evidence from 2005, which might show McCollum was not at the crime scene. It's going to prove or be part of proving the innocence of McCollum, Michigan State Police Detective Lieutenant Jamie Corona said of the video. Corona is a key member of a task force set up to reinvestigate the death of Carolyn Cronenberg, 60, who was attacked on the Lansing Community College campus. Was the wrong person punished? Who is the right one? I'm trying to be okay with whatever happens, said Cronenberg's longtime companion Doug Albert, 58, of Lansing. Shortly before 1 p.m. Tuesday, McCollum, 30, walked out of the Ingham County Jail, free on bond, wearing a shirt, tie, and slacks brought from home. He was ready to reclaim his life. McCollum spent more than 2 years in prison for the attack on Cronenberg, a woman he says he never met. Ingham County Circuit Judge James Giddings set McCollum's personal recognizance bond that morning at $100,000. His family will not pay unless he flees. The Reverend Ben Wade, the family minister, was at the bond hearing. He said, "I wanted to shout. It was like the walls had come down." Wade of Lansing's Tithe Missionary Baptist Church will check on McCollum a few times a week and help him find a job. As a condition of his bond, McCollum will live in Lansing with one of his aunts, 62-year-old Sharon Nevels. Nevels said she always knew her mild-mannered and soft-spoken nephew was innocent. "We've gotten this far," she said. "I believe it will all work out." McCollum's attorney, Hugh Clark Jr., is preparing for his client's new trial. "I'm never afraid to go to trial, not with what I know about this case," Clark said after Tuesday's hearing. He may ask the court to dismiss the case. Prosecutor Stuart Dunnings III asked that McCollum be released on bond. He said, "I do not believe he would pose a risk to our public safety." That comment is very telling about where they are going with this case, said Ron Bretz, a Thomas M. Cooley Law School professor who worked for 20 years as a public defender and still consults with criminal defense attorneys. Stephen Drizzen of the Center on Wrongful Convictions at Northwestern University's Law School, who has followed McCollum's case, said Dunning's statement to the court that McCollum does not pose a threat to public safety speaks volumes about the prosecution's belief that he may be innocent. If the state truly believed he was guilty, they would be fighting tooth and nail to keep him locked up to protect public safety, Drizzen said. At Tuesday's news conference, McCollum discussed his desire to go back to school, get a job, and earn a decent living. McCollum asked why he believes he was initially prosecuted. "Because I was available." Could Lansing's justice system have been in error? "As long as we have human people," Corona said, "we're going to have mistakes." Police suspect Macon in a string of slayings dating to 2004. Officially, though, the 28-year-old prison parolee has been charged in the death of just one woman and with the assault of another. For weeks, rumors have circulated that Macon had confessed in the Cronenberg case, but officials refused to go on the record, citing a gag order. The Lansing man's lawyer, Mike O'Brien, declined to comment on Corona's statement, saying, "That's confidential information." Corona confirmed Tuesday that Macon confessed. The Lansing State Journal asked, "I understand we have a confession from Macon that he killed Cronenberg. Is that true?" "Yes," Corona said, adding that he saw transcripts of the investigator interviews with Macon. Confirmation of Macon's confession on the same day he was released somewhat surprised McCollum, who has always maintained his innocence. "I can't ask for too much more," he said. "It's just another stepping stone towards proving my innocence." McCollum's new trial, which has yet to be scheduled, might draw scrutiny on the quality of police work in 2005. Questions have been raised about an interrogation of McCollum conducted by LCC and Lansing police detectives in 2005. The video, Corona says, can prove McCollum's innocence was in the police's and the prosecution's hands. "It appears to me an innocent man goes free," Corona said. A man suspected of killing several women in this city over several terrifying weeks was ordered Monday to stand trial on murder charges in 2 of the deaths. Judge Patrick Cherry bound Emmanuel Macon over for trial after a preliminary hearing in which a Michigan State Police forensic expert testified that genetic evidence found at the 2 crime scenes matched Macon's DNA profile. Macon is charged with the August killings of Karen Delgado Yates, 41, and Sandra Eichhorn, 64. Cherry dismissed charges of criminal sexual conduct, home invasion, and failure to register his residence with authorities, as Macon is required to do as a registered sex offender. Macon also is suspected in the deaths of Ruth Hallman, 76, Deborah Cook, 36, and Deborah Renfers, 46. A number of the victims were beaten and found in Lansing houses. Police also want Macon to be charged with the 2004 death of Barbara Jean Tuttle, 45, of Lansing. Tuttle's body was found in the same house where Renfers was later discovered. Macon, 28, who had been in prison off and on since 2001, was paroled in late June. Mike O'Brien, Macon's attorney, said during the hearing that there were no eyewitness reports of Macon attacking the women, and that there were some errors made in the DNA testing of materials found at the crime scene. "It just takes a little evidence to send Macon to trial," O'Brien told reporters afterward. "Keep an open mind." A gag order issued in the case kept him and Catherine Emerson, an assistant prosecuting attorney in Ingham County, from saying more. No trial date has been set. A judge ruled today that Matthew Macon will stand trial for killing 2 women and assaulting another this summer. Macon, 28, of Lansing, is charged with murder in connection with the deaths of Sandra Eichhorn and Karen Delgado Yates. No trial date has been set. Macon also will stand trial for assaulting Linda Chapel Jackson in her home. Authorities say Chapel Jackson survived the attack because her dog chased away Macon. A forensic scientist testified today at a preliminary hearing in 54A District Court that DNA found on items at 2 crime scenes matched Macon's DNA profile. The hearing, which began last week and concluded this morning, was to determine whether Macon would stand trial. Jeffrey Nye, a forensics expert with the Michigan State Police, linked Macon to Eichhorn's house, where her son found her dead on August 27, as well as the vacant house where Karen Delgado Yates was found barely alive 2 days later. District Judge Patrick Cherry today dismissed a criminal sexual conduct charge related to the Delgado Yates case. "The evidence is sufficiently sketchy," Cherry said in making his ruling. Nye conducted a DNA analysis of a Stanley work glove found at Eichhorn's South Genesee home. "The DNA profile from the cuff of that glove matched that of Mr. Macon," he said. He said the DNA found on a Cincinnati Reds baseball cap at 1115 Hickory Street also matched Macon's known DNA profile. That is the location where Delgado Yates was found barely alive on August 29th. She later died. Macon's attorney, Mike O'Brien, said after the hearing that errors could have been made in the DNA testing. "DNA evidence is very complicated," O'Brien said. "There's a lot of room for mistakes, and I'll just leave it at that." Macon also is charged with torturing Delgado Yates. Assistant Prosecutor Catherine Emerson today described evidence that Delgado Yates, as she was clinging to life, was dragged to a basement drain and then back upstairs to the living room. "It was brutal, inhumane, and sadistic," Emerson said in court. A forensic pathologist testified Delgado Yates suffered massive head injuries, possibly after being struck by a toilet tank lid found in the home's living room. She also suffered a skull fracture and 4 broken ribs.